There's an unfortunate trend at conventions when established artists are no longer remembered, let alone recognized, by a younger generation. Continuing our series on Will Eisner, John Hitchcock provides a wonderful example of what we can do should we ever come across a similar situation. Continuing now our Will Eisner series, my big thanks to John Hitchcock and Matt B. Lloyd.
I mean, that's big. I mean, that's huge.
Yeah.
Can you imagine telling your dad, guess what, Dad, I pulled in, because, but Eisner, besides him being smart, he really thought in a different way than anybody else. And his storytelling, I mean, he was very influenced by uh, George Harriman's Crazy Cat, Seagar's Popeye, Terry the Pirate's Kniff. But those, if you think about those guys, they're all different styles, but they're still good. They're great storytellers. And the storytelling was what was important to him. That's what he stressed. And when you look at The Spirit, which is an incredible body of work, The Spirit never had a logo. Every splash was a new splash because he said every story is a new story, and he didn't want to just slap the same thing on the cover all the time. It was always going to be, here's an introduction to something new, and it was. Now, when he was away at World War II, he had Jack Cole and Lou Fine working, doing the material, but he wasn't overseas. He was at the Pentagon, so he could send stuff to him when he could because he was busy. He was working on educational stuff for the military. But incredibly smart guy, and I've probably said that 1,000 times. But he loved having a laugh. He loved cutting up. I mean, and he was almost sometimes, I don't know. If I was him, I'd have been overwhelmed. But give him a lot of credit. They named the comic awards after him, the Eisners, and up until the last year of his life, he was there to present the awards to all the people. And he had this weird thing where he could stand up all day, and he said that was because when he was a kid, as a newspaper, he sold newspapers on the corner. He learned to stand up, and he would stand up. And in one year, a couple of the guys, I think one of them was Jeff Smith of Bone, and a couple of others, they ran over him and had behind stage a throne, and they walked a throne out to have him sit on a throne instead of, because they're all worried he's an older guy, he's in his 80s and he's standing up all the time. They figure this is going to might bonk the guy out. But I was on
that probably pissed him off.
After I used to go to the Eisner Awards when it was easy to go to. Now it takes an act of Congress to get in there because they have all these movie stars and shit trying to advertise stuff. But I was on the bus going back to the Westgate, and there were a couple of there was probably half a dozen young kids sitting in the back of the bus, and Will and Ann Eisner came into the bus and they sat down the front. And I'm gonna tell you something, buddy. When Will Eisner sat down, he went down in a huff. He was tired. I mean, he was beat. And I said, Will, why don't you sit down? Everybody wants. He goes, that's and his wife Annie goes, well, that's just the way Will is. He's taught himself to stand up. And he said, man, he said, this is getting to me. He said, this is the first time I've really been tired. And he's just like, boom, he's sitting there. And I said, well, I think it's great that you make the effort. And he goes, well, thanks, but I'm just beat. And you could hear in the back of the bus, these kids, I mean, they were teenagers, maybe 20 most. And they go, that's, you can hear them whispering, is that Will Eisner? Is that Will Eisner? and I was like sitting there going, I was looking at him, and Eisner looks at me and he goes, just give me a minute. I said, okay. Now he's beat. He got up and he walked to the back of the bus and introduced himself to every one of those kids, signed an autograph. And one of the kids looked at him and says, well, Mr. Eisner, we're just honored to be riding on your bus. And he went, no, it's not my bus, it's our bus, blah, blah, blah. He was just great about that. And then he talked to him. He gave him about 10 minutes. This guy is physically shot. And he walks back and he sits down. I said, I'm going to remember that the rest of my life. And he goes, well, John, it's part of the job.
But not everybody has to be that way. There are plenty of people that are like,
no.
I
can tell you stories. But he was.
That's the next episode.
we had a panel. We had a panel with him. The first panel was really good, but the second panel, he came to Greensboro in '84, and then he came back in 1990, and it was the 50th anniversary of The Spirit. which was really nice. And he brought his wife with him. And that was great because Annie was there. And it was so freaking funny. He goes, and he's with his wife, and, everything's cool. And then suddenly, and my sister's helping out, and my mother was there because my mother read the Spirit in Greensboro. I mean, she read the Spirit. So she knew who he was, and she wanted to meet him. And so Eisner comes walking up, and he goes, "Where's my table?" And I showed him. He goes, "Well, this is, you met Annie." I said, "Yeah, sure, Will." And he goes, "Well, look, can you put her to work? Can you give her something to do? She's not really a comic person." And I'm thinking, holy shit, I'm gonna put his wife to work. I mean, this is like an honor that she agreed to even be here. And I'm like, well, I really can't do that. And he goes, well, look, she worked in the hospitals and she worked with papers and stuff. She'd be really good. Put her on a mission, have her work there, and have her do some work. And I said, Will, I can't do that. This is your wife. And he goes, no, trust me, she'll love it. And he goes walking off, and there's a line, and so I'm sitting there, and Annie goes, "What do you want me to do?" And I said, "Well, just want you to sit there for a minute." And then suddenly, and this is such a sweet thing, my mother and my sister went up to her and said, "You don't want to be here, do you?" And she went, "No." And my mother who just passed, and my sister who's fine, said, "Why don't you come with us?" And they took his wife and took her to our house and had a tea, where they sat and had tea for a few hours. And whenever I saw his wife, and sadly Annie died about 6 months ago, she would always say, "How's your mother? How's your mother?" She was so kind to me. She was so nice to me. I mean, it's amazing how much a little thing would mean so much. I mean, I bought Will Eisner's breakfast once, and he made a point of coming over to personally thank me, even though, when you think about it, he was on the comp list for meals from the convention and didn't have to pay for shit. But I felt like doing it, because I was like, because he was a friend, So, but we did this, getting back to the second panel we had, and this tells you something about how slapdash some of this stuff was, but it was a beautiful show. And these people at the convention, at the mall we were at, put up this little box for us to sit on with a table, and it was like two little boxes. I mean, it's hard to explain, little box stage things. And we were sitting on plastic chairs, steel chairs with plastic. And Will's sitting there, and I'm sitting there, and I sat in it, and I'm a big guy, and the back gave out, and I fell off the thing. I only fell about 2 feet or 3 feet, but I fell, and boom. And the whole time I'm thinking, God almighty, don't let Will Eisner get on that chair and fall off and break his hip. I'm going to have people come hunt my ass. And everybody's like, "Are you okay? You okay?" And I said, and I looked at Will Eisner and I said, "Are you okay?" And he said, "Yeah, I'm fine. I said, "Well, thank God." He goes, "Well, and this tells you all you didn't know about the guy." He goes, "Look, this isn't going to work. I got a better idea." He said, "Everybody who's here," and there was about maybe, 12 people. What can I say? Some people don't realize they're getting a chance of a lifetime. And he said, "Everybody come here, and we're going to make a circle. And I'm going to sit here on this end, and John, you sit with me, and we're going to make a circle, and we're going to do it just like in the Eisner Iger days when it was at the end of the day. We're going to talk about comics, we're going to talk about storytelling." And he took over, and he started talking to these people. And he'd ask them questions, and they'd ask him questions, and they'd go around the whole thing. He made sure everybody had a minute to ask him a question. And we went all the way around. And then by the time the hour was up, there was about 25 people who pulled up chairs and were like, "Holy shit." We're sitting there. And he was eloquent. He was smart. He listened to what they had to say. He valued what they say. He took it so well. I mean, of course, nobody who's going to criticize him. But I did once, but that's another story. But anyway, I mean, that was so, and to this day, there are still a few guys, if I go to a comic convention, they'll walk up to me and they go, "I just want to let you know that Eisner panel wasn't just the best panel I went to. That's one of the best moments of my life." And I said, "Me too, man." I said, I couldn't believe how nice he was. I mean, he was just the greatest. I mean, he was the greatest guy, and I don't think people really truly appreciated him because he was there all the time. At San Diego, for example, San Diego's an incredible thing, but I'll give you. I don't know how much time we got, but I'll give you a story. Julie Swartz walked up to me one year and said, he goes, Hitchcock, if you want to meet Jack Kirby, if you want to see Jack Kirby, go see him now. He ain't gonna come back next year. He's not doing well." Because what happened was, Julie and a friend of his would go and pick the Kirbys up and take them to the show. The old school people. And then he told me, he said, he's not doing good, John. And I knew that Kirby had Parkinson's and he had some issues. And so I said, well, let's go over and see Jack. And they made an announcement. Ladies and gentlemen, Jack Kirby will be at booth number blah, blah, for the next hour. And Jack would love to meet his fans. There will be no autographs, but he would love to meet his fans. And you heard the whole arena go, ugh, because they weren't going to get their autograph. But Kirby was having trouble with his hand, and he couldn't really write, his signature. He had to sit down and grab it, and by himself, he was kind of embarrassed. And I'm going to tell you something, buddy. My buddy Don Stroud and I went, and we saw Kirby, and there was only one person in line to talk to him. And then we went up and talked to him for about 10 minutes, and he was wonderful. And when we turned around and left, there was nobody. And there was Jack Kirby, the Jack Kirby, standing in an empty. There was art or something, and he was sitting there. Roz, his wife, was sitting to the side on a chair reading a book or something, and the comic book convention was walking by him, and nobody talking to him. I don't think I ever was more upset. I couldn't believe that there's an opportunity to meet and talk to this guy, and I made a vow that I would never ever let that happen again if I could help it. And so a couple of years later, Jack passes, but a few years later, I walked up to this table and there was a small press person there, and she had a little bunch of books and stuff, and Eisner had agreed to do a cover for him, and he did it probably for nothing, because he wanted to help these people. And I walked up to this girl and I said, oh, I see on your sign that Will Eisner's going to be here. And she goes, yes, he will be here Saturday at 1 o'clock, and he'll be here for an hour. Because we're going to be selling our book, and it was, I forgot what it was, what the book was. Maybe it was a 9/11 book or something. And Eisner did the cover. So I was like, okay. So I went over there, and at about a little past 1, and Eisner was sitting away from the table with his legs crossed, wearing a pair of sunglasses, and nobody was talking to him. Nobody. Everybody's walking by, not giving a shit. And I'm like, I saw this with Jack Kirby. This ain't going to happen to Will Eisner. It's not. So I walked up, and you can imagine how loud I am, right? And like I said, I'm from Mayberry, so they know I'm kind of harmless. So I went up to this girl, and I said, excuse me, young lady, but it says on your sign right here that the great Will Eisner will be at this booth and from 1 to 2 o'clock. And according to my watch, it's a little past 1. Can you tell me if Will Eisner is here or not? And she goes, he's sitting right over there, sir. And Eisner's sitting there like this, and he sees me. And I look at him, and I wink. And I went, oh, my God, are you kidding me? Excuse me, sir, but are you really Will Eisner? Are you Will Eisner? Are you? And he goes, and Eisner stands up, walks over, and he goes, yes, lad, I am Will Eisner. And I went, Mr. Eisner, it's such an honor to meet you. And I'm spinning around going, hey, can you believe it? That's Will Eisner. I mean, he created the graphic novel. He did The Spirit. Jesus Christ, you did The Spirit. You're the greatest comic artist in the world. I cannot believe Mr. Eisner. I always said if I ever had an opportunity, I just want to shake your hand. I said, I came from North Carolina, and all I really want to do is just shake your hand and tell you how much I admire your work. I mean, God Almighty, The Spirit, I mean, it's one of the greatest comics of all time. And I said, oh, my God. I said, it's such an honor to meet you. I said, I left my comics at the hotel, and I don't think I could get back in time, but I still want to have an opportunity just to thank you. Can you believe it? Will Eisner, the man, they named the Eisner Awards after him because he's the man. I said, I can't believe it. I said, I just want to shake your hand. He goes, what's your name, young man? And I said, well, my name is John. He goes, well, John, thank you so much for taking the time to say hello. And I said, no, it's my honor. It's my honor. Ladies and gentlemen, Will Eisner doing a signing right now. And I just shook his hand. I can't believe it. I said, Mr. Eisner, God bless you and your family. I said, I hope that one day I might be able to see you again. And as I turned around, there was a line of about 35, 40 people behind me. And they were all, you could see them going, Will Eisner, and they'd run into each other. Bang, bang, bang. And they go, oh my God. And they go grab stuff. And there was a line out the yin yang. And I looked at Will and I shook his hand and I went, if you ever need a crowd, brother, just let me know. And he was laughing. He goes, thanks, John. I said, fine. So I disappear and leave. And then I'm at the Eisner Awards, right? Later that night, I'm in the Eisner Awards. And I'm kind of walking around trying to hobnob and meet somebody. And suddenly Annie Eisner comes walking by, and she goes, "John, Will told me what you did, and I really want to kiss you, but I got to go pee." And I said, "I totally understand. Go right ahead." And she goes running off to the bathroom. And Eisner, I saw Eisner eyes look at me. He's like, "That was a performance." I said, "Yeah, but you know what? It's justice. You deserve it." You know, I mean, the whole idea of people walking by Jack Kirby drove me crazy. And